Thank you very much, everybody, and I hope that you have a cup of tea to refresh you, because I'm going to send you to sleep, apparently. So I'm glad to be the first, presenter of this session. And as you can see, I will speak about, the role of the manufacturing sector in the Sudanese economy. And just to help your appetite, actually, this is a picture from the golden age of the Sudan. It is the Sudan Railways workshops in Adbara, and it is in 1960s, where Sudan actually used to have, an industry used to have an important role in the Sudanese economy. Unfortunately, this is not necessarily the case now. So by way of introduction, it's very easy to see that the Sudanese economy now, it is in a state of crisis. And this is not my actual judgment. This is a judgment of economic experts, for example, by Professor Isam Muhammad, who said that the performance of the Sudanese economy is an enigma of failures, even with the potential of country's resources. So it is not a secret anymore. It's fair to say that Sudanese economy is agriculturally based. The role of the industry generally and manufacturing in particular is very small. You can actually say that it's about 8.5% of the GDP come from the industrial sector. And that shows very low importance. And even, by things like the Nation Masters, they rank the Sudan as a country with low industrial production. However, we have to remember that all developing countries which wanted to actually get out of the poverty zone, they had adopted industrialization as an important part of their development model. So Sudan will not be the exception. So there is no escaping from the fact that we have to improve. So the Sudan needs to adopt an integrated sustainable development plan where industry represents the pivotal point. And when I say the word industry here, I use it very specifically. I know in the literature these days, you can find the word industry is used for everything. They use it for, services, for, even interestingly, there is something called sex industry in this world now. I do not mean that. I mean the industry, as I said here, refer to categories of production industry with measurable physical output, such as manufacturing and transport, ICT, and so on. So we are using it with very specific reference. So reviewing the contribution and role of manufacturing sector in the Sudan is a huge subject. I have no time, to do it, and even in 1 or 2 papers you cannot do it. So I will take only 3 aspects, to cover here: the Sudanese manufacturing landscape, contribution to the economy, and employment and labor satisfaction. So I'll start with the Sudanese manufacturing landscape. At a glance, you can see that, first of all, the size of the manufacturing sector is very small. And you can see by the blue colors here, it is mainly dominated by small-scale industries. Here I'm talking about industries of less than 10 employees. The large-scale industries is very small. Also, you can tell very easily that there are 3 states, that is Khartoum, if this works. Anyway, Khartoum, South Darfur, and Al Jazeera, which dominate the picture, and they have more than double the industrial establishments, both in large and small sectors, relative to any other state. Sorry, am I covering you? Okay. So if we want to summarize that, I can say that historically, large-scale industries are limited to the agro-food industries, just like sugar and grain mills and so on. And these are still representing more than 50% of the manufacturing output and more than 50% of the manufacturing employment. The 1960s and 70s, we started, to see the textile industry coming into the picture. In the late 1990s, we have manufacturing of heavy military and civil machinery, motor vehicle industries, expansion of the petroleum industry, which added a little bit to the manufacturing sector. And more recently, we have adventures in the aerospace industry as well with the Safat complex in 2009. However, interestingly, all these recent things from 1990 coming onwards, for whatever reason, they had been all established under the auspices of the military authority, except the petroleum industry. So presumably, you can say that there is implied assumption here that for some reasons, I think only the military can actually establish and manage such big projects. However, the fact that the petroleum industry, which was under the Ministry of Energy, it was very successful, and it was not under the military. So it is everybody's guess why all these industries, civil or military, they were all done under the auspices of the military establishment. More importantly to us today is that the impact of these recent additions is not yet felt in the economy. They actually represent only 1% of the GDP and 3% to the manufacturing employment. So they are still, to be felt from the economical point of view. However, I must say that to be fair to them, they are ranked amongst the best in terms of compensation of employees, in terms of wages, benefits, and so on. Okay, what is the contribution to the economy? These figures here are based on the comprehensive industrial survey, which is being carried out in 2001. And there is nothing more recent than that, unfortunately. But still it tells the state at that time, which relatively, there is no real movement in it since then. So the total manufacturing share of GDP, and this was done in the Sudan before secession of South Sudan. It was 9.5%. Now, if you take 1% is coming from the South, then if you want to reflect the reality of Sudan today, the contribution would be 8.5%, which is very small. In terms of value adding per capita, and this is to get the whole output of the manufacturing sector and divided by the population, then each of us have got $90 per year, not per hour. So you can compare this with a figure of 5,000 for the G7, and this can immediately tell you that it's less than 2% of the G7. It is extremely low. The largest establishments in terms of value adding, again, is big establishments of more than 100 employees. This represents 68% of the manufacturing value added, with the small scale industries contributing only 16%, whereas it's very small. However, they contribute to the overall employment of the manufacturing. So they don't have real value adding to the economy, but they can be helpful in terms of rural development. The biggest contributors, as I said before, were the sugar and grain mills, which is food technologies, with 6.1% to the GDP. If you compare this to the 8.5 of the total manufacturing, you can see the dominance of these industries. The petroleum comes as 1%. This is why I said it is not really huge. Interestingly, the motor vehicle and medical appliances have got negative contribution. Well, perhaps the motor vehicle industry is being affected because they have to import. Really? Okay, 5 minutes. Okay, but this means that these two industries have got negative trade balance. And this is the case for the whole manufacturing sector anyway. Contribution to the employment is 1.7%. mainly coming from small scale industries, which is 40%, despite the fact that they represent over 90% of the total establishments. Now share to export, only 12.8% comes from the industry, and 21% is the share of imports. And this shows why the manufacturing sector has got a negative trade balance. I think I'll go up here a little bit. So it is low importance to the economy. Most value added comes from the largest establishment, and it is not exposed to the export and much dependent on the import. This reflects weak industry and negative trade balance. Employment and labor satisfaction. Okay, labor compensation per employee per year is about $1,400. So actually, if you want to break that down, this comes to 50 cents per hour, half a dollar per hour. If you compare this with US civil figures, it's about $23. So it is less than 2% of the, and this shows that, you know, the manufacturing is not really very rewarding for employees. I think I'll escape some of these just due to time, but the figures are here for you all to see. I can actually summarize it by saying that, and take my word for it. Manufacturing labor compensation is low. The manufacturing characterized by cheap labor and material intensity. And the rate of return, by the way, this is very important thing, on investment is actually, for the private sector, is relatively high. It's about 9 times. So if you spend certain capital on industry, you will get about 9 times that in terms of return. So it is quite rewarding. But the maximum actually return on investment comes from the tobacco industry, and believe it or not, that is about 1,500 times for the tobacco industry. And the largest compensation actually comes from the public sector, followed by mixed public and foreign, followed by mixed Sudanese private and foreign, Sudanese private only, and last comes foreign private sector. And this shows that, you can conclude from this, that public oversight is required to safeguard employees' interest. So you need some kind of policing or monitoring of foreign investment in order to safeguard the employees' interest. So general observations, Sudan is far away from having effective manufacturing sector. It lacks a strategic direction. There is no industrial strategy or industrial policy, or even industrial planning in the Sudan, which is really interesting. So effective manufacturing sector is a must-have if we want to get out of poverty zone. So the Sudan, to benefit from opportunities of created globally, because you know now, for example, I give you, I work for Airbus. The aerospace industry, we have over 400 suppliers worldwide. So big industries are going globally. If we want to take advantage of that, we need to be ready for that by actually develop the capability and improve quality. This means quality education, self-reliance, investment in heavy industrialization, and good governance. Just by the way of making some recommendations to improve the performance of the manufacturing sector in Sudan, we need to inject heavy dose of industrialization to the economy. We need good governance with anti-corruption drive, political stability. We need to create investment attractive environment. And we need to overhaul all existing facilities and invest in new ones. So we have to build capacity, develop capability, develop infrastructure. Additionally, we need to invest in education, training, and technology transfer. We need, because these things are actually a requirement for verification of product quality and suppliers' credentials. So if we want to be suppliers to Airbus, for example, they will check, what we have. Do we have the appropriate number of engineers, the appropriate number of, and what qualifications they have? So we need training, we need good quality education as requirements for verification of product quality and supplier's credential. And we should have quality as priority, and we should have these things, as a priority. Also, regular appearance at international stages, because this actually raises Sudanese industrial profile, highlights capability, and improves networking. So this facilitates technology transfer, as mentioned in one of the earlier presentations, because I think for your, what is the master, the PhD degrees, being built over people going to conferences and talk to other people and attract people, to supervise the PhDs. This is the kind of things which you actually gain. So it facilitates technology transfer and also attracts foreign investment when we are talking about industry. I can now conclude by saying that the Sudanese economy is agriculturally based. So competitive manufacturing sector requires investment in infrastructure, technology transfer, education, and training. Flourishing industrial sector requires clear development path, good governance. You need industrial strategy, industrial policy, and clean source of energy. And you need regular attendance in international stages. External training, internationally recognized professional qualifications are also very important. And I have made some recommendations. I hope they will contribute to improving the standard of manufacturing sector in the Sudan. Thank you very much.